transformative business that we're in. So let me take you through a journey. And this is a real example of Mount Dennis area. We bought the Kodak lands. All that's left on the Kodak land is something called Building 9, which it fronts on Eglinton Ave near the railroad tracks there. They used to develop, if anybody remembers, film cameras here. They used to have a product called Kodak Kodachrome, and they used to develop Kodachrome slides at this facility for all of Canada. All of the buildings are gone except that one building. This is the crossroads of the Eglinton project, the Georgetown line, or the Kitchener line, as GO Transit calls it now. We have gone out to the community and talked to them about, we need to do some things here. We need to build a maintenance facility for the new light rail vehicles that will run on Eglinton. So that's kind of the footprint for the storage tracks and the building. And then we need to put a transit center in the middle of this facility, so that buses coming in from the TTC can drop people off, so people can hop on the light rail line, and vice versa, so people can hop on a future GO station that will be here, and a future Up Express station. This is a future GO station that will be located right across Eglinton Ave on an existing bridge that's being widened. This is the park and ride, passenger drop-off area. This is a repurposed Building 9. So this is this old building that is the only thing. It used to be a rec center for Kodak employees. There's a basketball court in there. There was a stage. Somebody decided to have a little bonfire on the stage. It's really sad to see what the inside of this building looks like, but we're fixing up the roof and tightening up the building, and we're looking at repurposing it, working with the local community to look at ideas of how we can repurpose that building. So this gives you kind of the layout of what's in the plans now. Bus terminal, new GO station, new entrances, maintenance facility that looks something like that. But the community met with us and said, well, why can't you take that big 15-bay transit center and do something like this? Create some jobs right next to transit hubs. So that's a vision, and we're actually going to be looking at some proposals to see how you might integrate that transit center into some office towers right on top of a rail network, a GO network, an Up Express network to the airport. There's a lot of connectivity here. Across the street, there's something called the Black Creek Drive Triangle. It's a no-frills store right now. It's going to be right next to a huge transit hub. This is visionary now, but you could do something with that development to put housing, mixed use, commercial, residential, office tower in there, right next to a transit hub. And I think the beauty of this is if you're coming in from the airport and you have a meeting at Eglinton and Yonge, you can get off here. You don't have to go down to Union Station and add more pressure on Union Station. You can go across town, on the cross-town, and you can get off at Yonge to Eglinton. Or if you need to go downtown, maybe you're at University in Bloor or something like that, you can go to Eglinton West and get the subway there. So a lot of what the Eglinton is going to do and a lot of what this transit hub is going to do is create the network, just a part of the network that Ed was talking about earlier. And it kind of shows the benefit of what we do on a day-to-day basis and what the possibilities are. And this isn't too much of a stretch. So Eglinton is up and running at the end of 2020. It'd be really interesting to see how that area gets redeveloped. So thank you for your time. I think what we're trying to do here in the Toronto area is visionary. We do really need dedicated funding. It's an important factor. You just can't keep planning, and changing the plan. I think one of the big things that's happened in Toronto is there's been way too much planning, to echo what Ed talked about, and not enough funding. And if we just start building this stuff, the network will come. So get a plan, stick to it, and build it. Thank you.
So we are, if we did a few more questions, are you willing to do that, John? Sure. We could maybe go 5-10 minutes, and then we'll do our 10-minute break, and we'll be right on time. I'll let you pick questions, but I do see former Councillor Howard Levine, transportation guru in his own right, so why don't you start us off, Howard?
I'd like to know why Metrolinx has not been a proponent of electrification.
We're doing some studies. Well, we're doing some studies on electrification. Actually, the plan calls for 3 of the lines to be electrified. It's money, primarily. It's money, and it doesn't give you a lot more capacity.
That's debatable. But you've just talked about so much money for planning and studying. Why not just do it? The airport line will be one of the only lines, dedicated lines in the entire world to an airport that's not electrified. That's a tragedy, in my estimation.
But there is a plan to electrify it, and we're setting
plan. Yes.
Yeah, there's a plan to electrify it, and an environmental assessment is being done on the electrification of the line and some other priority lines. But you're going from an existing heavy rail system to electrified rail, and it takes time to do. It does take time, but I think there's a commitment to do it. Again, it's funding is the main issue on that. Yes.
One of your last slides talked about clear criteria for project selection, and now with the benefit of 6 or 8 months of hindsight, can you comment on the fiasco that happened in Scarborough last fall, and where it seemed the only criteria was for poor Metrolinx, and I sympathize with you, to follow whatever the politicians had as a flavor of the day?
Well, it's not easy on project teams to change channels like that. I mean, the city had approved the environmental document. We'd taken the engineering up to approximately 30%, and then they just ripped the guts out of the project and go to something else. Yeah. I just don't know. I mean, what was the title of your book again, Ed? The last part. I mean, to me, again, my point was, you've got a plan. All of those lines were approved by the city. They all went through full council debate and approval, and then the plan gets changed. So
a tragedy, I guess.
Yeah,
I'd say, really, right?
I did a little fact check last night, and I was curious to know how our new TTC chair voted on that particular issue. She voted the right way.
Out of curiosity, on the Eglinton Crosstown line, you guys are actually putting in the tunnel liners first and then removing them afterwards.
only at the station.
Only at the stations, but is that the kind of counterproductive? Wouldn't that be a lot easier to excavate out the stations, to box it out with decking, and then run the tunnel right through quickly?
Sure. So here's the risk, and this happened in Seattle and a few other jobs I've worked on. You're moving along, your tunnel boring machines are going, and one of those station boxes got held up by an unforeseen utility that had to be relocated, and that tunnel boring machine sits there, and that's costing you literally tens of thousands of dollars a day while that sits there. And then you get a big claim from the contractor saying, you didn't finish that station box in time. And so
But that
actually,
an alternate.
Shepherd, whether you like the Shepherd subway or not, it was built that way, and they pulled the liners out, and it went fairly well. So what we do is we put what's called a head wall, which is being built right now on Eglinton. So if you wonder what's going on with all that equipment, keel's done. That's the good news. Will be done shortly with the one at Oakwood. I think we finished at Caledonia, and we're working our way over to Yonge Street by putting these head walls in. So the machine can go through, you get a nice tight seal at each end, and then when the follow-on contractor comes, they'll put a seek and pile wall on each end, and then they'll start the excavation. So the other thing is I saw that slide, and I really wish that when Young Street was built, the subway was built, that I could take curb to curb, and take all the traffic like they did back in the 50s. We can't. Our environmental document says we have to keep one lane open in each direction. So that's a real challenge, a construction challenge for pulling that off. But every time I go out there and talk to the community, they're really excited about the project. There is a lot of impact right now on them and the businesses, but they really want to see it get done. There is a lot of people who suffered through that construction. The TTC started in the early 90s when the project was canceled in 95. That, we're almost doubling the impact in the same area, that if they'd finished what they had started, it'd be a little bit less impact right now. Yes, sir.
I just want to clarify, the section of Eglinton that got canceled was not near the Kodak plant
No.
then? Okay.
Well, it was going to go out that direction. It was going from Eglinton west.
Actually, I had a second question, also on the Scarborough RT portion. Would it not have been cheaper to go with the Mark II ICTS cars that they're using in Vancouver?
So
And
that,
then basically just, I know that they've had problems with icing, obviously. Just to put an electric resistance cable that would be using green sources like windmills or solar to prevent icing on that
Well,
third induction rail.
the Transit City network, there was a study done on that.
It was a
by
lot
the
cheaper, it was like
TTC.
300-something million just to go with the Mark II cars.
Yeah, well, they did a study, and it was back in 2008, and they looked at that option. They looked at the subway option, and they looked at going to light rail. Transit City came along in 2009, late 2008, 2009, and they said, let's just run the Eglinton cars up on that grade separated right-of-way and extend it up to Shepherd, so it's part of a network. So again, they were trying to build a network. So we'll have a little bit of a hole in the network now, but I guess there'll be a connection to Shepherd on McGowan or something, and if the subway extension gets built, when it gets built.
One final question, then I think we're going to take our break.
Fine. Yes.
Jack, are there any plans to loop the subway so that if one side goes down, it doesn't stop the other side from rolling?